Okay, so tonight we have Dr. Philip Seeger from Hamburg in Germany. I actually attended this same talk in German, and he was kind enough to offer to present it to us in English. Thank you, Dr. Seeger, for joining us today, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation to present this topic here in this in this webinar series. My name is Philip Seeger, as you told everybody. I'm a resident doctor from the Department of General Surgery at the University Medical Center Hamburg-Eppendorf. This topic today might be a little bit more, you can say dry or boring as the other ones that I saw in this webinar series, but I think it is also as important to have a look at what research, one of research backgrounds is about and how we should do it. So the topic is, as you can see, peer review, and peer review, of course, means how submitted papers are processed and how they are evaluated for publication. And if we look at what's important in peer review, and we look at what is important and to do in a paper and what to look out for, then it's the same applies to when you write a paper yourself. So these are both of these topics kind of combined in this talk. Now it works. So the first question is, why do we have peer review in the scientific community? Why is it important? And as I said, whenever a scientist or a group of scientists is submitting a journal to is submitting a paper to a journal, and it is accepted at this journal and then open for publication for everybody to see in databases like PubMed, it is perceived as as a state of the art. This is then knowledge for everybody that everybody can read and everybody can have a look at. And when this is thought to be valid knowledge. So to keep up this high level of trust people have in peer review journals, it is important that this peer review process has a high standard. So peer review is important to maintain scientific integrity in the scientific community. And on the other hand, not every paper that is submitted to a journal is then also accepted. Some are rejected, most of them actually have to go through many revisions. So it's important source for feedback to the submitting scientists and for scientists to work on their papers and to improve themselves. Yeah. So here you can see a short overview of how a peer review process works. So whenever a group of scientists, most of the time it is a group, not a single person, submits a paper. Can you see the mouse
Yes.
on the screen? Yeah, perfect. So whenever a paper is submitted by a group of scientists, it has to, you can check this before you do the submission in the journal, in the internet of the website of the journal, what criteria they have, what needs to be in this journal, what quality standards do they have. So, and then these quality standards are checked in before the actual peer review process begins. So a journal should have author list, a title, a certain structure that follows an introduction, methods, results, and discussion, and this should all be in there. And it should be, if this basic stuff is not fulfilled, then it is automatically rejected. Or if some journals have extra formalities, only certain kind of references, certain kind of article. And then this should be the basics should be right for it not to be rejected in the first place. So if then these basics are right, then it is accepted, and the peer review process begins. And usually there are two reviewers chosen by the editorial board that are very familiar with the topic of the article. So most of the time, for example, if you use a broad journal or to submit your paper, like let's say that everybody knows, for example, science, then these do all kinds of topics, these journals. So you can't expect the editorial board to have knowledge in all of the topics. So they use reviewers that are very familiar with the topic to actually be able to say if this is a good article or not. And then these two reviewers do the review. We will talk about this later. And they just give a recommendation to the editorial board. They do not decide themselves what happens with the article. They just recommend what should be done. So the two extremes are accept without revision. So the paper is perfect, nothing needs to be changed, can be accepted as it is, and is then published in this in the journal. This happens very rarely, at least in my experience. So most of the time you are in between, that you have to do some kind of improvement over your paper. Maybe it's a minor revision, or major, that you have, if you do lab work, then you have to do whole experiments again, maybe look at another mechanism, do another kind of method. If you're more in clinical research, maybe you should do another analysis of your patient cohort or something like this. And then if criteria that we will talk about later are not met, then the paper can be rejected. But this, although it is here very red and looks bad, is not the end of your article, can also mean, or should be, you should get this message that your paper is rejected together with a recommendation where you could better submit your paper. Maybe a low-level journal or lower-level journal that is maybe more concentrated on a certain kind of topic. These often have less submissions because the topic is not so broad, and the chance of publication is then higher. So often before a paper is submitted, it goes through a process not of one peer review, but several, because maybe in the first journal you're not accepted, and the second also not, and then in the third time you're lucky. And then here's also a third reviewer. This often only is used when the first two reviewers have very different opinions about the paper, and then you need a third one, to say what is now the best recommendation. So if you have any questions in between, just I hope I can hear you. Just ask.
You will ask the questions at the end.
Okay, I'm also fine with this. So the key aspects that should be addressed by peer review are if the paper has a logical overall context. So in short, does it make sense? So is the introduction refer to a relevant topic? Is there a gap in the knowledge that is addressed in this paper? Is the right methods are used? Stuff like this. So and it's not about to just say what is bad about the paper, also not just saying, this paper is perfect, accept, but you should actually give constructive criticism to the people that submit the journal. For one, to keep a high standard of scientific research, and secondly, also to give researchers the chance to improve their work. Yeah, and what is not so much important, or should not be in the focus of the review, is formal stuff like grammar, spelling, the format of the paper, and also plagiarism. So this is not the last word in this 3 points. Of course, if the grammar or the language is so bad that you have trouble understanding the point of the papers, then of course it is relevant and you should point it out and give feedback to the scientist and to the editorial board. But you should not spend time with correcting simple grammar and spelling errors. And plagiarism is the same. You should not look for it. The journals often have other processes in which this is checked. But if you have the feeling, I heard this before, this sounds very familiar, or even it's not only plagiarism of other papers, but also plagiarism of your own work. If you try to submit results that you have submitted somewhere before and also published before, maybe submit them in some other language or some other form, some other heading. It's also plagiarism. And if this is obvious, then you should also point it out. Yeah. So if it then happens that you are lucky that you get an invitation for a review of a paper, you should ask yourself the following questions. First, can you meet the deadline? Because we all are very busy all the time and we have many things to do. And of course, the benefit for yourself is not directly to be seen when you do a review. So people tend to don't meet these deadlines. So what you should really take into consideration, that there are people waiting for their work that they probably have worked many months, most of the time many years for. And if you don't do a timely review, then this is just not fair, I would say. Second question you should ask yourself, do you actually know something about the topic? I think this is kind of two sides, this point, because on the one hand, of course, if you know nothing about something, then it's also not so, you shouldn't be then invited to review this paper. And if it's kind of your topic, but you're not really familiar with it, then for me, I would think about to just read myself into this topic, because it's also a chance for yourself to just be known in a journal that you do good reviews, and then it also helps your reputation in the scientific world. And then, of course, which should be obvious, but maybe it is not, that you should have a neutral attitude towards the author. So maybe this is someone from a competing researching group, and it happens that should do the review, and of course you tend to do a bad review for them or not. So if you have doubt that you have a neutral attitude towards authors, just don't take this invitation and suggest someone else that is more suitable. So then, if this is all checked and you feel fit and ready to do the review, the first thing, so this is just the steps that I follow when I do a review. But of course, you can also, everybody does it a little bit else, a little bit different. But I think these are key points that should be included in every review. So I do a first read of the review of the paper, of the article, and try to get an overview. What is the topic? What is the question these people try to answer? What methods do they use? What are the results that they find? And what context is this? What the kind of research is this even? And then in this first read, should take not much more than 15 minutes. You should also find out if this is a paper that is worth looking into and spend more time with, or a paper that has such basic flaws that, for example, plagiarism or bad language or important stuff is missing, or figures don't match with the text or something like this. Then you can actually do recommend a rejection or major revision or something like this, and don't spend more time. So the scientist should improve first, and after you can get this first read, get the overview, get the gist of the article, then you should also start to write the first paragraph. I've given an example here, a very simple one about this is not real. I thought about this to keep it simple. So you should include the general content. What is it about? What kind of research is this? And then if it's rather good or not so good, and then you start more in detail with the minor or major points that you have that should be revised. So could sound like this. The article Neuromonitoring in Thyroid Surgery is about nerve damage complications of thyroid surgery when using neuromonitoring. So very simple topic. And this is done in this example by analyzing retrospective data from a single center, and low incidence of nerve damage was found when using neuromonitoring. So the authors conclude that neuromonitoring should be standard in thyroid surgery. So just in simple sentences, what is this about? So then this paper is well written and uses a fitting study design to shed light on the use of neuromonitoring in thyroid surgery. However, there are some aspects that can be improved. And then you start, so at least I do it like this, with the major and minor points. You can do in chronologic order or in the order of magnitude of the errors. Yeah, whatever suits you best. And then you start to check for the details. First, check the introduction. So introduction should be like a little bit like a newspaper, a good headline, a good that catches the reader's interest. You give a general introduction to the topic, what is known right now, and what are maybe problems right now. Often when you have clinical papers, and there's often complications or something that make a therapy critical. So this is your area, your question where you want to add something with your research. And in the end of the introduction, you should always state very clearly what are the aims of the study. So for in this example, we looked at the retrospective data in our patients to see if the neuromonitoring helps to reduce complications of thyroid surgery, as a simple example. And of course, you always need to give literature references, and these should be appropriate. And appropriate means they should be up to date, so shouldn't be super old from 10 years or 20 years ago. You can use older references when it's just basic knowledge. And they should be have a certain kind of credibility for. So basic knowledge is often published in the big papers like New England Journal of Medicine or something, and yeah, you should rather use these than the journals that have not very small or have a not so good reputation, like the MDPI stuff and this. Then next part would be the methods. Methods are important predominantly in the aspect that they should provide the reader with the first the reader should understand what methods that they use, what are they about, to be able to understand how the results are generated, but also that to give the scientific community the opportunity to reproduce these results. That's one basic principle of science, is that results should be reproducible if they want to be valid. And then if you use human data or do human interventions or animal experience, there should always be a paragraph about ethical standards. These are very different from country to country, but in almost every country, there's some kind of institutional board or regulatory board that gives the scientific group that they are allowed to do these experiments. And there should be a paragraph of how the results are then processed in a mathematical way, so statistics. In the result paragraph, you should check, so the results should include in a very objective way just the results themselves. Yeah? Together, this is closely connected often to the figures of the paper. What did we find out? What is the focus of the results? But it should not so much include interpretation of the data and connection to current knowledge. This is then the next part of the discussion and the conclusion. And as I said, the discussion and the conclusion should be about what these results can add to your question that you discussed in the introduction. Most of the time, it does not completely answer your question. So you should also discuss limitations, stuff that you results or areas of your question that could not be answered by your results. And also how these results fit into the current knowledge. Yeah? So this actually is like the outer structure of the paper. So the introduction states gives the questions that arises and links them to the current knowledge, and then the discussion links your results to the question you gave in the introduction. I hope this makes sense. So if you then did all this, and you should have taken notes during the detailed reading of the paper that needs to be reviewed, and then you can write short paragraphs of each the revisions you find. You can also write what you liked about the paper, and in the end, you can decide what's your conclusion. If this is then very individual. Do you do the accept, reject, or something in between with revisions, which is most often the case. But you should keep in mind, if you suggest minor or major revisions, most of the time you're also the one that then is asked to check these revisions, which makes sense, but you should keep this in mind. So I hope I didn't bore you too much with this very text-based topic. Thank you for your attention, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you for this. It was not a boring topic. It was a very nice topic and well prepared and well presented. Let's see. It was straightforward too. So let's see if we have any questions from the audience. Please, if anyone has a question, raise your hand. But I have to say it was well prepared, so I don't expect many questions. Okay, Dr. Naeem.
Hi, thank you very much, Professor McGee. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So my question is that is there any role of AI, the artificial intelligence, the apps to quickly, because nowadays you know that there is a time bar to quickly analyze your data to get help, how reliable they are, like as a search engine, and for the critical appraisals of the papers, like how can you, tell about the credibility of those artificial intelligence apps, and what is their role, and how does the future hold for them? Thank you.
Well, thank you for your question. Very good question. So if you want to use AI like ChatGPT or something like this to write, for example, the introduction of your own paper, then you should be careful, actually. I mean, you can do this. I personally would only use this to get like a basic structure that you can then work on yourself. Because firstly, the results that ChatGPT gives you are often fabricated. The literature references often exist only in parts or sometimes not at all. So be very careful. And if you use AI, you should always state this. So it's every paper has this conflict of interest paragraph and acknowledgements. And there should also be a paragraph if you used AI, you should state this very clearly. Different journals have different policies regarding AI. Some don't want it. I think most of them allow it, but you should state it. And when you write your review, yeah, I'm sure to do if you want to make yourself familiar with the topic, you can ask ChatGPT to give you a short overview of something. But this is only the beginning, and then you have to start to read yourself, I think.
Okay. Dr. Hackert?
Okay, I can unmute now. Okay, fine. Dr. Seeger, thank you very much for this talk. There are 2 points I want to raise. The first thing is, I think I would not like to use AI because it is always a little bit of critical. You get some plagiarism, you get things like these problems you don't need. This is generally the first thing. The second thing I would like to emphasize is that you should also tailor your review and your opinion on the level of the journal, which means you know the impact factors in some way. You know what is expected and you know what people submit there. And this is, of course, I would say crucial, because some say, okay, this goes to that journal, this goes to that journal, but you always have to be aware you want to submit something sometime in the future. And if you are too critical, then people will reject you. The business is working like that, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I don't know. The system is, somehow self-explaining. And that's just a point that you should keep in mind when you do your reviews and when you do your submissions.
Okay. Any other questions? Please, if you have a question, raise your hand. How many publications did you publish, Dr. Seeger?
So far, I submitted some, but not so many were successful, I have to say. So it's a number you can count with one hand.
Okay.
You
Well,
are
me too.
successful, don't worry.
I think it needs some more time. I started not so long ago.
Sure.
Okay, good luck in the future. Okay, I think we don't have any more questions. So thank you. It was a concise talk, but to the point, and we all enjoyed it. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for your invitation. It was a very nice experience.
Okay, thank you, and see you next week.
Yes.
Good night, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.